Good morning, everyone, or good evening, whatever the case may be. I have played Marvel Rivals, and I have become a part of the Marvel Rivals fan base, and as such, I have a whole lot to say about this game. So many thoughts that I wasn't sure what video to do with them, so let's just all put them in one video. This game is doing a lot. It's doing a lot of things to the Marvel fan base, reviving the Marvel fan base, really, which we're going to talk about. It's doing a lot of things to the Fantastic Four, and it's creating a lot of discussion around the Fantastic Four that we've never seen before. A lot of discussion around video games in general and the video game industry and what makes people buy games. There's conversations about objectification versus non-objectification, what counts as objectification with the Sue Storm design. So this is just going to be the big video where I talk about it all, and it's very, very interesting. So what we're going to talk about first is Sue Storm and the Sue Storm Invisible Woman designs for this game specifically. When they first started advertising the Fantastic Four as the four characters that you could play in Season 1, there was just an explosion of talk around these characters. And why? Because their designs are very visually striking. They're all very good designs in general. Of course, Invisible Woman got the most talk because she is probably the most attractive design in the game. And I want to talk about that because it isn't necessarily that all of her looks in the games are sexualized. Like, that's kind of what's getting the discussion, but that's not actually the case. Her first design just looks normal. Like, this is a normal video game design. Well, I won't say normal. Like, this is a very, very attractive design, and it's definitely is on par with who Sue Storm is supposed to be. There is a reason why Namor is fighting over Reed Richards over her. But I want to say that this design in general has gotten a ton of discussion around it, but it's not really that sexualized. Like, there's one moment in the opening of the game where you get a butt shot, and I played the game. It's literally one moment in the opening. It's effectively clickbait. When you play Sue Storm, she's just normal. She's just a normal, attractive video game character design. And it's crazy to think that she's gotten so much discussion around her when she's really just regular. She's gotten so much fan art. She's gotten just so much discussion, so many people wanting to play her. It's just interesting to see. But why is that, and why are people really going after the Fantastic Four? Well, once again, these designs of the game are just very, very visually striking. Like the suits that they wear with this crisp 4 on the front and the good combination of white and blue. They did make Reed Richards very, very attractive in this game. He's really beefed up, you know? And so that is what is getting so much attention around Reed and Sue, because no surprise, attractive, appealing looking designs for video game characters are going to turn heads. But there's another element of this, the Malice skin that you can buy for Susan Storm. Now, this design is definitely sexualized. And what is my opinion on that? Well, I don't need that. I do think that this design does go into the over-sexualized territory. I'll just say I don't need Susan Storm's butt flying at me while I'm trying to play the game. I don't need it flashing at me while I'm playing the game. Of course, if you've seen online, some people may disagree with some people. Some men are acting like they haven't seen an attractive woman in like 20 years over this design. But so yeah, this design definitely goes too far for me. But here is the positive thing about it, is that the game does make it so it's optional. It's just a skin you can buy for the character. Like, Susan Storm is normal when you play her in-game. Malice is the sexualized version of her, but they make it optional, so if you don't want to play that, or maybe you have kids where you're fine with them playing Marvel Rivals, but you don't want them to see that skin, then you don't have to buy it. It's just a skin. It doesn't affect any of the core aspects of the game. But this skin has created a lot of discussion again, because it is definitely a sexualized design. And with my personal beliefs, I don't agree with over-sexualizing characters or objectifying them. However, I do want to say something about this, is that these designs for Susan Storm, they're very attractive, they're very striking, they're very provocative. And that's why video game companies make these designs for characters, is because look at what's happened. There's all this discussion discussion over these designs for Susan Storm and whether it goes too far and the intentions behind this, and just talking about video game characters in general. You could say that even Reed Richards caused some of that discussion. But there's something else that's happening that I think that the people trying to advocate for uglified female characters in video games is a side effect of that. What they haven't intended is that, you can have conversations about objectification of female characters and whether you think that the Malice design, for example, goes too far or not. But here's the problem that they've created is right now this feels like a return to normalcy. And that's another reason why these are getting such a buzz around them. Because, it's a concept that does have a logic to it, even though I disagree with it. Why do they make attractive female characters, or the part I disagree with, over-sexualized, objectified female characters? Well, because it turns heads, not just from men, but from women. It turns heads, it gets people to talk about the game. So even if you don't agree with that, but there is still a logic there with people trying to sell their game. There isn't really a logic in people taking models, attractive models for video games, and warping their faces so that they're more plain looking or less attractive, so that there's a very uncanny look to those game models. Like, that's the problem, and I got someone writing to me with my last video about it, about that's the real problem with these uglified video game characters, is because you have to warp their faces from who their models were, and so that is why they look so uncanny. And I have said before, I think that is a cruel thing to do. But that is the problem that those activists pushing that have created. Now, people don't just gravitate towards the attractive Sue Storm design or the over-sexualized Malice design. What I'll say is the difference is there's a difference between sexy and sexualized. That's the real difference here from what we're talking about. But the people don't just gravitate towards these just because they're attractive designs or they're provocative. They're gravitating towards because it feels normal. Like the notion that you would try to make an attractive or provocative design for a female character, that just to, sell your game, that feels normal, and it feels like a normal concept. Like saying that female video game characters need to be warped so that they look below average, so they look worse, because that's what should be normal to some of these people. That's not normal. This feels like a return to normalcy, a return to the original, and that's why people are really responding to it. But I will say, while the Malice costume, I'm not going to buy it or wear it, there is something that this game is doing. In addition to just having very, very striking designs, and I have to say, a lot of the fan art that I'm seeing for Sue Storm, once again, isn't over-sexualized. People are just really liking this design for her. And importantly, because the designs for the Fantastic Four are so striking and their characterizations in the game, people are becoming interested in Fantastic Four. Like the Sue Storm searches have gone up 100,000 views since this dropped. And why is that happening when with Fantastic Four, the MCU version, Fantastic Four's First Steps, with all of the stuff they've released, the castings, the leaked art, the concept of it, the leaked trailer, none of it has gotten this much discussion over Fantastic Four. I'm seeing people bring up the comics, but because Malice is being introduced in this game, people are asking questions about that storyline from the comics. They're asking questions about what are the best Fantastic Four storylines. I'm seeing panels taken from Fantastic Four comics get hundreds and thousands of views online. And why is that? Well, because the designs for these characters are striking and their characterizations are good in the game and they're really fun to play. That is making people finally, after decades, interested in Fantastic Four and seeing the fun of the individual characters and seeing the fun of their dynamics. And that is something very unfortunate for the MCU because they haven't done any of that, not with the designs that they're teasing for the characters or the castings or anything of that. Look, I'm not even talking about this person needs to be hot or this person needs to be hot. I'm just saying making visually striking designs. I compare the design for Sue Storm in this game, which on the regular isn't even sexualized versus what they're doing with Vanessa Kirby in the movie, and it just looks so bland so far. There's nothing exciting or striking about it, and that is a huge problem that the MCU is having right now. It's kind of what's happened with a lot of superhero content in general, is that it's become mundane. Like their costumes aren't striking. They're very, very safe. Everything that they're doing with the characters is very, very safe, and probably usually in that jokey MCU tone. And I think part of the problem that they're making the Fantastic Four movie is they're thinking that this sort of retro Jetsons thing is going to bring people in that's very, very different from the comics. But no, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that that's going to work out because it's still doing this sort of cutesy against the comics thing that the MCU has been doing for years now. Because this is something that the MCU needs to learn. And it's something that Marvel Rivals is doing. And the most surprising thing, I think, is coming out of Marvel Rivals. It's reviving the Marvel fan base. It's not even doing so just for the Fantastic Four. It is reviving the Marvel fan base. And why? Is it just because we have a fun game to play? That's part of it, yes. But also, this is the first game in years that is not directly connected to the MCU. There are a couple references in-game to the MCU, like Tony Stark creating Ultron as opposed to Hank Pym as it was in the comics, but most of the references as the characters are talking to each other and talking about their history are for the comics, and that is also giving people to be interested in the comic book stories behind them. Characters who've never appeared in the MCU before, like Magic or Storm, are appearing here with their comic-accurate characterization. But here is the most important thing, in addition to all of that Marvel Rivals is doing. It is remembering the actual tone of the MCU. The actual tone of the MCU is more serious. It's more of like an action sci-fi thing. The characters take themselves and their fantastical situations more seriously. These are smart characters. These are characters with a maturity to them. Something that we haven't seen in the MCU in a very, very long time. Not since the beginning of the MCU. And that is the real tone of Marvel, and that is what's really exciting people and drawing them into this game. That is why people get upset in Marvel Rivals when they make a reference to the movies as opposed to the games, because the game has the original Marvel tone from the comics that hasn't been seen in years, and it makes it really immersive and exciting to play, and taking these characters seriously and becoming interested in like the Fantastic Four because they're taken seriously. They have the intelligence of Reed Richards and the strength of Sue Storm, all of that. It's not doing the cutesy, jokey James Gunn humor or style that the MCU has fallen into for many, many years now. Even Endgame got a lot of criticism because it fell way too far into that. And that is what is really interesting about Marvel Rivals and how it's bringing back that fan base. And it's making people go back to things like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. All of a sudden, I'm seeing videos and posts on Twitter getting tens of thousands of likes and tens of thousands of views of people rediscovering things like Earth's Mightiest Heroes and how that show had the original tone of Marvel and was taken seriously and is just a well-written action show with good characters that isn't falling into this James Gunn bathos humor constantly where all the characters are made into jokes, all the characters are made immature. Well, some of the characters are immature, but I hope you understand what I mean. Back when the MCU was mainly focused, not the MCU, back when Marvel was focused on having good characters and storylines you were interested in, not just this style, this MCU-ification, James Gunn, Joss Whedon style that I would say started in Age of Ultron and slowly crept its way up to becoming all the MCU was. Marvel Rivals is remembering what Marvel is supposed to be and going back to the comics in a positive way. And it's what's making people go back to these other versions of the characters that are really good and that stand the test of time. Earth's Mightiest Heroes came out well over 10 years ago, 15 years ago at this point. And people are rediscovering it and loving it because it's such a good show. And this is something that I think the MCU has yet to rediscover. Maybe they have with Daredevil, as that trailer just released, and that's kind of remembering what Marvel used to be. But that is something that they need to do with their films. They need to get rid of this cutesy pie humor. They need to remember what Marvel actually is and take it seriously, because Marvel Rivals is proving that people aren't done with Marvel. They are enjoying these versions of the characters because they are back to their core, back to their roots. They are an escape from the MCU versions. And it's so relieving after so many years of everything Marvel becoming MCU-ified to get back to what these characters and storylines and their tone is supposed to be. And that's what I really love about Marvel Rivals. Even though I do find it a fun game, I do think that it takes a little time to get the hang of it, but it is worthwhile if you can. And I really enjoy just playing these characters and being immersed in the world that I know Marvel is. And I'm so excited that after so many years, Marvel Rivals is reviving the Marvel fan base and having people go back to the comics and all of that. What do you think of this video? Do you agree or disagree with what I'm saying here? Are you seeing the revival of the Marvel fanbase? Are you looking forward to Daredevil Born Again? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, patrons, as always. If you want to support my work, which I do all by myself on here, the editing, the writing, everything, then please consider becoming a Patreon. I have a new short film coming out very, very soon, which I hope that you'll watch and give me some feedback on. And I will see you guys next time.